Dr. Nathan Cross was working on quantum field equations when the news reached Luna Base 7. His research station floated in the shadow of Earth's moon, far from the noise and politics of the galaxy. Nathan preferred it that way. He had spent 5 years in isolation, studying the deepest mysteries of physics, while the rest of humanity fought wars across the stars. His assistant, Dr. Rachel Stone, burst into his laboratory without knocking. Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking. Nathan looked up from his calculations, annoyed by the interruption. "Nathan, you need to see this," Rachel said, activating the wall screen. "It's about your sister." The news footage began playing automatically. Nathan watched as camera drones showed the wreckage of the sanctuary floating in space. Pieces of white hull with red crosses spun slowly against the stars. Bodies in medical uniforms drifted among the debris, their faces peaceful in death. The attack occurred at 1400 hours Galactic Standard Time, the news reporter was saying. All 3,000 patients and crew aboard the medical vessel are presumed dead. This represents the first known attack on a protected hospital ship in galactic history. Nathan felt something cold settle in his chest. Amanda was gone. His younger sister, who had always believed that healing was more important than fighting, had died trying to save others. The screen showed footage of War Prime Kethvar explaining why the attack was necessary. "The humans were carrying military intelligence," the Zephyrian commander said. "They aided our enemies. This is the natural consequence of such actions." Nathan turned off the screen and sat in silence for several minutes. Rachel waited, not knowing what to say. She had worked with Nathan for 3 years and had never seen him show strong emotion about anything. He approached every problem with the same cold logic, whether he was calculating star positions or deciding what to eat for lunch. "Show me everything," Nathan said quietly. "Nathan, maybe you should take some time to process this. Show me everything about the attack. I want tactical reports, communication logs, and complete video footage from every angle." Rachel hesitated. "Some of it is classified military intelligence." Nathan looked at her with eyes that seemed suddenly much older. "Then get me access to the classified files. Use my old military clearance codes if necessary." For the next 6 hours, Nathan studied every piece of information about the attack on the sanctuary. He analyzed the Zephyrian ship positions, their weapon signatures, and their communication patterns. He read medical reports about the victims and watched security footage from inside the hospital ship as it was destroyed. Rachel brought him food, but he didn't eat. She brought him coffee, but it grew cold on his desk. Nathan's mind was working on a level she had never seen before, processing data and connections that would take other people weeks to understand. "The attack pattern is interesting," Nathan said suddenly. "They weren't just destroying the ship. They were making sure no one survived to tell the story." "But the whole galaxy saw what happened," Rachel pointed out. "It was broadcast live." "Yes, but that wasn't the original plan." Nathan pulled up tactical displays showing the Zephyrian ship movements. "Look at their positioning. They expected to destroy the ship quickly and quietly, then claim it was a military transport. The live broadcast caught them off guard." Nathan opened a communication channel to Earth's military headquarters. Admiral Frank Coleman appeared on the screen after several minutes. He was an old man with steel-gray hair and tired eyes who had known Nathan since his days as a military strategist. "Nathan, I'm sorry about Amanda," the Admiral said. "I know how close you two were." "I want access to Black Site Research Division," Nathan said without preamble. Admiral Coleman's expression became cautious. "Nathan, You left the military weapons program for good reasons. Don't let grief make you do something you'll regret later. They killed a hospital ship, Frank. They killed doctors and children and patients who couldn't even walk. They did it knowing the whole galaxy was watching, and they feel no shame about it. I understand your anger, but revenge isn't going to bring Amanda back. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was so calm, it made Rachel feel cold. This isn't about revenge. This is about making sure it never happens again. The Zephyrians attacked that ship because they knew humans wouldn't retaliate effectively. They see our mercy as weakness. What are you planning? Admiral Coleman asked. I'm going to change their minds about human weakness, Nathan replied. I need a full research team and access to theoretical weapons projects. Give me what I need, and I'll end this war in a way that ensures no one will ever attack another hospital ship. The Admiral studied Nathan's face through the screen. He had seen that expression before, during the Proxima campaign, when Nathan had developed strategies that saved millions of human lives. But there was something different now, something harder and more focused. What kind of weapons are you talking about? Coleman asked. The kind that make conventional military force obsolete, Nathan said. The kind that end wars without firing a shot. Rachel watched the conversation with growing unease. She had worked with Nathan long enough to know that when he said something was possible, it usually was. His mind worked in ways that other scientists could barely follow, making connections and calculations that seemed impossible. After the communication ended, Nathan began pulling files from deep military archives, research projects that had been classified for decades, theoretical weapons that existed only on paper, and scientific data that most people would need years to understand. Nathan, what exactly are you planning to build? Rachel asked. He looked up from a complex equation involving quantum entanglement theory, something that will teach the galaxy that mercy protected by overwhelming strength is not weakness, it's evolution. Dr. Ashley Morgan arrived at Luna Base 7 the next morning, along with systems engineer Carlos Rivera and 6 other specialists. They came because Nathan had requested them personally, and because Admiral Coleman had authorized unlimited resources for what Nathan was calling Project Retribution. None of them knew exactly what they would be working on, but they recognized the focused intensity in Nathan's eyes. Rachel briefed them on the basic situation, but she could see they were all thinking the same thing she was. Nathan Cross had been content to study theoretical physics in isolation, but the attack on the sanctuary had awakened something in him that had been sleeping for 5 years. He was no longer just a scientist. He was a weapon designer again, and this time he had no moral restrictions holding him back. The first principle of the project, Nathan told his assembled team, is that we will not kill anyone unnecessarily. The second principle is that we will make it impossible for anyone to kill innocents without facing consequences they cannot imagine. He activated a holographic display showing star charts of Zephyrian space. We're going to demonstrate to the galaxy that humans have evolved beyond the need for conventional warfare, and we're going to start with the species that thinks attacking hospital ships is acceptable military strategy. The team exchanged glances. They had no idea what Nathan was planning, but they could see the cold fire in his eyes. War Prime Kethvar had awakened something terrible in a man whose genius had once been devoted to saving lives. Now that genius would be focused on reshaping the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Nathan Cross had been working for 3 weeks without sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. His research team watched him with growing concern as he filled whiteboards with equations that hurt their brains to look at. Dr. Rachel Stone brought Him meals that he forgot to eat and coffee that went cold while he stared at quantum mathematics that most scientists thought were impossible. The key is entanglement on a massive scale, Nathan explained to his team during one of their daily briefings. Every atom in the universe is connected to every other atom through quantum fields. We just need to find a way to manipulate those connections. Dr. Ashley Morgan, the quantum physicist on his team, looked confused. Nathan, what you're describing would require more energy than a star produces. The calculations don't work. Nathan smiled for the first time since learning about Amanda's death. It was not a pleasant smile. The calculations work if you stop thinking like everyone else. Watch. He activated a holographic display showing two particles spinning in opposite directions. Standard quantum entanglement theory says these particles will always spin opposite to each other, no matter how far apart they are. But what if we could entangle not just two particles, but two entire star systems? Carlos Rivera, the system's engineer, shook his head. That's impossible. The amount of processing power alone would be impossible with current technology, Nathan interrupted, but not impossible with technology that doesn't exist yet. He changed the display to show a complex machine with parts that seem to fold in on themselves. I call it a quantum field generator. It creates artificial entanglement between any 2 points in space, regardless of distance. Rachel studied the design with growing alarm. She had worked with Nathan long enough to know that his impossible ideas usually became possible very quickly. What would something like this be used for? Nathan's expression became very serious. Imagine you could make the Zephyrian home system temporarily exist in the same quantum space as an empty system on the other side of the galaxy. For a few minutes, both systems would share the same physical laws, the same gravitational fields, the same everything. That would disrupt everything, Ashley said, her voice barely a whisper. Communications, transportation, planetary shields, life support systems on space stations. Exactly, Nathan replied. And if I wanted to, I could make the effect permanent. An entire star system could simply stop existing in normal space while continuing to exist in quantum space. From the outside, it would appear that the system had been completely erased. From the inside, the inhabitants would be trapped forever in a space that connects to nothing. The room fell silent. Carlos was the first to speak. Nathan, you're talking about a weapon that could remove entire civilizations from existence without killing a single person, Nathan pointed out. They would continue to live, but they would be completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. No communication, no travel, no way to threaten anyone else ever again. Admiral Coleman arrived at Luna Base 7 the next day for a personal briefing. Nathan showed him the completed design for the quantum field generator and explained how it would work. The Admiral listened in silence, his face growing paler with each detail. "This is beyond anything we've ever conceived," Coleman said when Nathan finished. "Are you certain it will work?" "I'm certain enough to test it," Nathan replied. "There's an uninhabited system 40 light-years from here. We can run a small-scale demonstration there. And if the test works," Nathan called up a star chart showing Zephyrian space. "Then we give War Prime Kethvar and his government a choice. They can surrender unconditionally and face trial for war crimes, or they can spend eternity isolated from the rest of the galaxy." The test took place 3 days later. Nathan's team had built a small version of the quantum field generator in the research station's main laboratory. The target was a lifeless solar system that contained nothing but rocks and frozen gas. Initiating quantum field displacement. Nathan announced as he activated the machine. The laboratory filled with a strange humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. On the main screen, they watched the target system through long-range sensors. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every star in the system began flickering like candles in the wind. The planets stopped moving in their orbits. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the system's boundaries. Field stabilization achieved, Rachel reported from her monitoring station. The system is now existing in isolated quantum space. For 10 minutes, the test system was completely cut off from normal space. No signals could enter or leave. No ships could travel to or from it. It existed, but it existed alone. Reversing the field, Nathan announced. The humming sound stopped, and the star system returned to normal space as if nothing had happened. Admiral Coleman stared at the readings in amazement. My God, Nathan, you've created the ultimate strategic weapon. I've created the ultimate peacekeeping tool, Nathan corrected. No more wars, no more genocides, no more attacks on hospital ships. Any civilization that chooses to threaten innocent lives will simply be removed from the galaxy until they learn better. Dr. Stone pulled Nathan aside after the briefing. Nathan, I need to ask you something important. What happens if they refuse to surrender? What happens if you make the isolation permanent? Nathan looked out the laboratory window at the stars where his sister had died. Then they learned that there are consequences for treating mercy as weakness. The Zephyrians chose to murder doctors and children. They chose to break every law of civilized behavior. Now, they get to choose between justice and extinction. You're talking about condemning an entire species. I'm talking about saving every other species in the galaxy from them, Nathan replied coldly. Amanda died because the Zephyrians thought humans were too weak to retaliate effectively. I'm going to show them how wrong they were. The final version of the quantum field generator was built in secret over the next 2 weeks. It was massive, requiring an entire asteroid to house its components, but it could affect any star system in the galaxy with pinpoint accuracy. Nathan named it the Mercy Engine, though his team thought the name was darkly ironic. It would enforce mercy by threatening total isolation. It would protect the innocent by removing the ability to harm them. It would end war by making war meaningless. Sir, Carlos said as they prepared for the weapon's first operational use. Are you sure about this? Once we demonstrate what this machine can do, there's no going back. The entire galaxy will change. Nathan thought about Amanda holding little Emma Santos as their ship was destroyed. He thought about War Prime Kethvar's satisfied expression as he watched innocent people die. He thought about every hospital ship, every refugee convoy, and every civilian transport that might be attacked in the future. The galaxy needs to change, Nathan said quietly. And if the Zephyrians won't surrender peacefully, then they'll be the example that teaches everyone else why Mercy must be protected. He activated the Mercy Engine's targeting system and locked on to the Zephyrian home system. Soon, War Prime Kethvar would learn what happened when a genius devoted his life to making sure Amanda's death had meaning. The first plasma blast hit the Sanctuary's engine section at exactly 1400 hours. The entire ship shook like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the corridors as the main power systems failed. Dr. Amanda Clark was thrown against the wall of Medical Bay 7, her medical scanner flying from her hands and shattering on the floor. "All hands! We are under attack!" came Captain Jake Morrison's voice over the communication system. His words were calm, but Amanda could hear the shock beneath them. "This is a medical vessel. We are protected under galactic law." The second blast tore through the hull near the children's ward. Amanda felt the ship's artificial gravity flicker as she ran toward the sound of screaming children. The corridor filled with smoke and the terrible smell of burning metal. Emergency doors were closing automatically, but not fast enough to save everyone. Emma Santos was crying in her bed when Amanda reached her. The little girl's leg wound had started bleeding again from the impact. Around them, other children were calling for their parents, not understanding why the ship was shaking and why the lights were flashing. "It's going to be okay," Amanda told Emma, though she knew it was a lie. She picked up the girl and started, moving toward the emergency escape pod stations. "We're going to take a little trip." Nurse Beth Williams was already there with 6 other children, but her face was pale with fear. "Doctor, the escape pods in this section are damaged. We need to get to Deck 4. The ship shook again as another plasma blast hit them. This time, Amanda heard the terrible sound of hull plates being torn away. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear Sam Rodriguez's voice over the communication system calling out damage reports. Life support was failing. The fusion reactors were becoming unstable. Amanda and Beth carried the children through corridors filled with floating debris and emergency foam. Other medical staff were doing the same thing throughout the ship, trying to save as many patients as possible. But the sanctuary had never been built for combat. It had no armor, no military shields, and no way to defend itself. On the bridge, Captain Morrison was sending desperate messages to any ship that could hear them. "This is medical vessel Sanctuary under attack by Zephyrian forces. We are a protected hospital ship carrying 3,000 patients. Request immediate assistance." Lieutenant Lisa Taylor was working frantically at her station, trying to keep the communication systems working as more plasma blasts hit the ship. "Captain, I'm getting responses from the Galactic news networks. They're broadcasting what's happening live." "Good," Jake said grimly. "Let the whole galaxy see what the Zephyrians think of medical protection laws." War Prime Kethavar's face appeared on the main screen again. Behind him, Amanda could see other Zephyrian officers watching the attack with satisfaction. "Human vessel. You were warned. Your ship carries military intelligence and enemy combatants. This is the price of helping our enemies." "You're killing children," Jake shouted at the screen. "You're killing doctors and nurses and patients who can't even stand up." The Zephyrian commander's yellow eyes showed no emotion. "Weakness. Your species is too weak for this galaxy. Consider this a lesson." Another blast hit the bridge directly. Jake Morrison disappeared in a flash of superheated plasma, along with 2 other bridge officers. Lisa Taylor was thrown across the room, her left arm clearly broken, but she crawled back to her station and kept working. "This is Lieutenant Taylor taking command," she announced over the ship's communication system. "All sections, begin immediate evacuation procedures." In the engine room, Sam Rodriguez was fighting a losing battle against the ship's failing systems. Plasma conduits were exploding around him as he tried to keep the fusion reactors from overloading. If those reactors went critical, they would take out everything within 1,000 kilometers, including the Zephyrian ships. "Sam, get out of there," came Dr. Kevin Hughes's voice over the communication system. "The whole section is about to collapse." "Not yet," Sam replied, sweat pouring down his face as he worked. "I can give you 5 more minutes for evacuation, maybe 10 if I'm lucky." Back in the medical bays, Amanda was making the hardest decision of her life. The escape pods could only hold a fraction of the patients aboard the sanctuary. She had to choose who would live and who would die. "Beth, take all the children you can carry," she said. "Get them to the pods on Deck 4. "What about you?" Beth asked. Amanda looked around at the wounded patients who couldn't be moved. Many of them were unconscious. Others were too badly injured to survive in an escape pod. Someone has to stay with them. Dr. Clark, you can't, one of the younger nurses said. The ship is breaking apart. These people trusted us to save them, Amanda replied. I won't abandon them now. Dr. Hughes arrived with more patients on floating stretchers. His medical uniform was torn and covered in blood, but his hands were still steady. Amanda, we can't save everyone. We have to be practical. You take the next group to the pods, Amanda told him. I'll stay with the critical cases. The ship shook again, more violently this time. Through the hull breach in medical, Bay 3, Amanda could see one of the Zephyrian destroyers firing continuously. The aliens weren't just attacking the ship, they were making sure it would be completely destroyed. Emma Santos tugged at Amanda's coat. Doctor, where are my mommy and daddy? Amanda knelt down and held the little girl close. They're waiting for you somewhere safe. We're going to send you to them. Okay? But even as she said it, Amanda knew she was lying again. Emma's parents were dead, killed in the same attack that wounded her. And now the little girl might die too. All because the Zephyrians saw mercy as weakness. Lieutenant Taylor's voice came over the communication system one last time. All remaining personnel, this is the final evacuation call. The ship's structure is failing. We have maybe 3 minutes before complete hull breach. Amanda looked around at the patients she couldn't save. Old men and women who had lived through decades of war. Young soldiers who would never see their families again, and civilians who had done nothing wrong except be in the way when the shooting started. I'm sorry, she whispered to them. The final plasma blast hit the ship's central structure. The sanctuary broke apart like a flower opening its petals, spilling escape pods and debris into the cold darkness of space. Some of the pods made it clear. Others were destroyed by secondary explosions or caught in the ship's gravitational collapse. Amanda Clark died holding Emma Santos in her arms as Medical Bay 7 was torn open to space. Around them, 3,000 dreams ended in silence and starlight. War Prime Cathvar watched the destruction on his command screen and nodded with satisfaction. Send a message to all ships in this sector. This is what happens to those who aid the enemies of the Zephyrian Empire. What he didn't know was that news cameras across the galaxy had recorded every moment of the attack. And somewhere on a research station near Earth's moon, a brilliant man named Nathan Cross was watching his sister die. Dr. Amanda Clark pressed her hand against the cold metal wall of the medical bay and closed her eyes for a moment. The ship hummed quietly around her as it moved through space toward Kepler Station. She could hear the soft beeping of medical machines and the quiet voices of nurses talking to their patients. This was her world now, a floating hospital in the darkness between stars. The sanctuary was not like other ships. It had no weapons, no armor, and no military purpose. The entire vessel was built for one thing only: saving lives. Red crosses covered its white hull, and special signals broadcast continuously to tell everyone in space that this was a medical ship. Under galactic law, no one was supposed to attack a hospital ship. Ever. Amanda walked through the long corridors, lined with medical beds. 3,000 people lay in those beds, all of them hurt and scared. They came from 12 different worlds that the Zephyrian Empire had attacked. Some were human colonists, others were alien refugees who had been caught in the fighting. Men, women, children, and elderly people all mixed together in their shared suffering. She stopped at bed 47, where a small girl named Emma Santos was sleeping. The 8-year-old had lost both her parents when the Zephyrians bombed her colony on Harvest Moon. A piece of metal had cut deep into her leg, and she would need surgery when they reached the station. Amanda gently touched the girl's forehead. Emma's fever had finally broken during the night. "Dr. Clark, please report to the bridge," came a voice over the ship's communication system. Amanda made her way to the front of the ship, where Captain Jake Morrison stood looking out at the stars. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been flying ships for 30 years, but he had never carried so many wounded people at once. "What's the situation, Captain?" Amanda asked. Jake pointed to a screen showing their position. "We're still 2 days from Kepler Station, but we've got company." He touched a button, and the screen changed to show 3 dark shapes following behind them. "Zephyrian destroyers! They've been tracking us for 6 hours." Amanda felt her stomach tighten. "Have they made contact?" "Multiple times. They keep ordering us to change course and head for one of their military bases instead." Jake's voice was calm, but Amanda could hear the worry underneath. "I keep reminding them that we're a protected medical vessel, but they don't seem to care." Lieutenant Lisa Taylor turned from her position at the communications station. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and quick fingers that never stopped moving across her control panel. "Sir, I'm getting another transmission from the lead Zephyrian ship." "Put it through," Jake said. The main screen flickered and showed the face of an alien commander. The Zephyrian had gray-green skin, yellow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When he spoke, his voice sounded like gravel scraping against metal. "Human vessel, this is War Prime Keth Var of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You are carrying enemies of the Empire. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Jake stepped forward and activated the communication system. "War Prime, this is Captain Morrison of the medical vessel Sanctuary. We are operating under the Galactic Medical Accords. All patients aboard this ship are under medical protection regardless of their species or political status. We are not carrying weapons or military supplies." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "You carry information. You carry wounded soldiers who will fight us again. You aid our enemies." "We aid the sick and injured," Amanda said, moving next to Jake. "That includes Zephyrian civilians. We have 47 of your people aboard this ship right now, all receiving the same medical care as everyone else." War Prime Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughing. "Weak human sentiments. Your mercy makes you fools. Change course to Zephyrian Base Gamma 7 or we will change it for you." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake looked at his crew. "Lisa, send a message to all nearby ships. Tell them about our situation. Include our medical status and current coordinates." "Already done, sir," Lisa replied. "But the nearest human military vessel is 4 days away." Dr. Kevin Hughes, the chief medical officer, entered the bridge. He was a tall man with kind eyes and steady hands that had saved thousands of lives during his career. "Captain, I need to speak with you about our patients. Many of them are too weak to be moved. If we have to evacuate the ship—" "We're not evacuating," Jake said firmly. "This ship is protected under galactic law. No military force has the right to attack a hospital ship." Engineer Sam Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system from the engine room. "Captain, those Zephyrian ships are moving closer. They're scanning us with military sensors." Amanda moved to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 warships were following them, filled with soldiers who saw their mission of mercy as an act of war. She thought about Emma Santos and all the other children aboard the ship. She thought about the Zephyrian civilians they were treating, people whose own military now threatened them. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I'm detecting weapon signatures from all 3 ships. They're charging their plasma cannons." Jake activated the ship-wide communication system. "All medical staff, this is the captain. Prepare for possible emergency procedures. Secure all patients and equipment." Amanda felt her hands shake slightly. She had been in dangerous situations before, but never like this. The sanctuary had no shield strong enough to stop military weapons. If those ships attacked, the medical bays would become death traps. Nurse Beth Williams appeared on the bridge, her uniform stained with blood from treating patients. "Dr. Clark, we need you in Medical Bay 7. We have a patient going into cardiac arrest." Amanda looked at Jake, then at the screen showing the approaching warships. "Keep me informed of any changes," she told him. As she hurried toward the medical bay, Amanda passed windows showing the black space around them. The stars looked so peaceful, but she knew that death was following close behind them. She thought about her brother Nathan, far away on his research station. He always said that humans were too kind for their own good in a galaxy full of predators. Maybe he was right. But as she reached the patient in cardiac arrest and began working to save his life, Amanda knew she would rather die showing mercy than live by abandoning it. That was what made humans different from species like the Zephyrians. That difference was about to be tested in the worst possible way. The change began slowly across Zephyrian space. On their homeworld, War Commander Vextar woke up on the 3rd day after the human operation began and felt something he had never experienced before in his life. For the first time, he questioned whether conquest was really necessary. The thought was so foreign to his mind that he almost dismissed it, but the feeling grew stronger throughout the day. In the command center of his flagship, Vextar stared at the tactical displays showing Zephyrian forces positioned throughout Coalition space. Yesterday, these displays had filled him with pride and anticipation for further victories. Today, they made him feel tired and confused. Why were they fighting this war? What was the actual purpose of all this destruction? Similar thoughts were occurring to Zephyrians across their empire. On Zerion Prime, the scientists who had been developing new biological weapons found themselves unable to concentrate on their work. The idea of creating diseases to kill innocent people suddenly seemed pointless and cruel. Many of them simply walked away from their laboratories and went home to spend time with their families. Fleet commanders who had been planning new attacks on Coalition worlds began having doubts about their strategies. Soldiers who had been eager for battle started questioning their orders. Throughout Zephyrian space, the aggressive drive that had fueled their empire for generations was quietly fading away. Alex Carter watched the reports coming in through the human network with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. The pacification compound was working exactly as designed, but he knew this was only the beginning of a much larger transformation. From his command center in the converted wreckage of the sanctuary, he could feel the collective intelligence of humanity processing the implications of what they had accomplished. "Dr. Carter, we're receiving communication requests from Zephyrian commanders," Amy reported. "They're asking for ceasefire negotiations." "Already?" Lisa asked in surprise. "It's only been 4 days since we began the operation." Alex nodded, having expected this development. "The compound works quickly once it reaches sufficient concentration in their systems. Their brain chemistry is changing, and with it, their entire perspective on conflict and cooperation." Dr. Elena Martinez looked up from her monitoring station. The biological changes are happening faster than we predicted. Zephyrian hormone levels are stabilizing at normal ranges for the first time in their recorded history. They're becoming who they were meant to be before their homeworld's magnetic field altered their development. Across the galaxy, coalition forces were witnessing something unprecedented. Zephyrian fleets that had been advancing on multiple fronts suddenly stopped their attacks. Some units began withdrawing from coalition territory without explanation. Others requested permission to land on neutral worlds to discuss surrender terms. The speed of the transformation shocked everyone except the humans, who had calculated every aspect of the change through their network. Alex felt the collective satisfaction of thousands of human minds as their plan succeeded beyond even their most optimistic projections. Amy, contact Coalition Command. Tell them that humans are ready to begin formal peace negotiations with the Zephyrian Empire. We'll serve as mediators since we understand both the biological and political aspects of the situation. Captain Ron Blake looked up from the engineering station where he had been monitoring the operation. Alex, the other species are going to ask questions about how we accomplish this. Are we going to tell them about the network? Alex considered the question carefully. The human network was still active, still sharing knowledge and insights across impossible distances. He could feel the collective wisdom of his species, helping him think through the implications of revealing their new capabilities. We'll tell them what they need to know, Alex decided. The galaxy needs to understand that humans are not what they appeared to be. We've been underestimated for too long. Over the following weeks, the transformation of Zephyrian society continued. Without the constant chemical drive for aggression, Zephyrians began to show remarkable creativity and intelligence. Their technology, previously focused entirely on warfare, was rapidly adapted for peaceful purposes. Their biological weapons facilities were converted into medical research centers. Their military fleets became exploration and trade vessels. The first official meeting between human and Zephyrian representatives took place on a neutral space station near the border between their territories. Alex traveled there personally, accompanied by Dr. Martinez and several other humans who had been key to the network's success. War Commander Vexitar attended the meeting, but he was a changed individual. The aggressive posture and militant attitude that had defined him were gone, replaced by curiosity and what appeared to be genuine remorse for his past actions. Dr. Carter, Vexitar said in heavily accented Standard Galactic, my people have been analyzing what happened to us. We know that humans were responsible for the change in our brain chemistry. Many of my subordinates consider this an act of war. Alex met the Zephyrian's gaze calmly. What do you consider it? Vexitar was quiet for a long moment. I consider it liberation. For the first time in my life, I can think clearly about the consequences of my actions. I can feel empathy for the people my forces have harmed. The compound you used did not make us weak. It made us whole. The negotiations that followed established a new framework for galactic civilization. The Zephyrian Empire formally surrendered and began the process of transforming into a peaceful federation. Their advanced technology was shared with the Coalition in exchange for medical and educational assistance in adapting to their new society. More importantly, the other species of the galaxy finally understood what humans truly were. The quiet, medical personnel and engineers who had seemed so harmless were revealed to be strategic thinkers of unprecedented capability. The species that everyone had dismissed as support staff had executed the most complex operation in galactic history. Alex, returned to the sanctuary, which had been fully repaired and upgraded with new technology developed through the human network. As he walked through the medical bays, treating patients from multiple species, including former Zephyrian soldiers, he reflected on how much had changed. The network was still there, connecting human minds across the galaxy, but it no longer operated at the crisis level that had emerged during the war. Instead, it had become a permanent but subtle enhancement to human consciousness. Humans could still share knowledge and coordinate responses when needed, but they retained their individual personalities and free will. Dr. Morrison, fully recovered from his injuries, found Alex in the main medical bay. "Alex, the Coalition. Council wants to meet with you. They're talking about restructuring the entire alliance with humans in leadership roles." Alex smiled as he continued treating a young Zephyrian who had been injured in an industrial accident. "Tell them we're honored, but we prefer our current role. We're healers and builders, not rulers. That's what makes us human. Outside the viewports, ships from dozens of species work together in peaceful cooperation. The galaxy would never again underestimate the quiet species that preferred to heal rather than harm. But more importantly, humans would never again underestimate themselves. The crisis had revealed the true potential that lay dormant within humanity. They had used it to save the galaxy not through destruction, but through transformation and healing. That, Alex realized, was the most human response of all.